Well, I want to start how I always swore I would start my memoir, which apparently I'm supposed to be meeting with a literary agent in New York to work on this week, with being handcuffed spread eagle to a bed in juvenile hall. No, it wasn't kind of weird, kinky, 50 Shades of Grey stuff. No, what happened was I had a habit of punching people in the face, and the juvenile hall guards didn't appreciate that, and they had this system. All right, I don't know how many. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a juvenile hall. It sucks. And they had this idea that, oh, we have a point system, and the point, every time you could get a point for anything. If you didn't swear at the cook, you got 1 point. I remember that because I usually got that one. If you didn't pick up your clothes, you lost points. If you told somebody to go fuck themselves, you lost points. I lost a lot of points. You could lose a bunch of points at once. But if you got in a fight or destroyed property. So you start out with 100 points, and usually by the middle of the day I was down to 3. And you had to earn your way of being out of your cell. So 70 points you could be out of your cell. You drop below that. Usually I dropped below that, like I said, by lunchtime. And then they would say, go to your room, which was a cell with a little bitty unbreakable glass window. And I would say, go fuck yourself. And then they would try and put me in there. And by then I'd already done judo. And I would knock some people down, bounce their head off the floor. And then I would get put in there and then try and throw me back in. And then I eventually get tired of it, and they'd handcuff one hand to the bed. And this particular day, they handcuff one hand to the bed, and I haul up and sock somebody with the other hand. So they handcuff the other hand to the bed, and then I twist around, I kick somebody in the face. And so then they handcuff my feet to the bed, and then they left. And so I'm in here, handcuffed, spread eagle to the bed, thinking, and I swear to God, I knew this at the time, it was a weird thought, when I become president of General Motors, this is going to be the opening scene in my autobiography. I was not a normal child. So eventually you would think if this was a real dramatic story, Lifetime TV, then somebody would come and rescue me. Daddy Warbucks would come in and be my true father. No, none of that happens. And I don't remember how long I was in handcuffed, but I'm sure it wasn't all day and all night, because really I would have pissed myself. They never show that, on TV. But you think about if you're hanging there, you would have been like a little urine-soaked bundle. So sometime third shift, the older African-American lady whose job it was to, I guess, make sure we didn't break the glass and squeeze through the 3-inch window. She came in and she said, this ain't right. I can't see you like this. But she said, I'm an old lady, so promise me you won't punch me in the face and I'll unlock you. And so she did, and that was that. And the next day they put me in a different foster home, and I swore I would never come back, but of course 2 months later I was back. And how I ended up in foster care, well, back when I was young, it was still legal to beat kids with a belt in school. And so I got in trouble in school, probably for fighting, and the assistant principal called my house, and my dad said, hit it with a belt, that's what I would do. And so I went into class, to his office, and what they had you do back then is you bent over, and they said, bend over and take your swats, and I said, motherfucker, if you hit me, I'm hitting you back. And so they said I got suspended from school, and he said, you can come back when you're ready to take your swats. And it's been 44 years, and I still haven't been back. And one of the things that I have told all of my children is no one has the right to beat you. And there have been days since then when people have laid a hand on me, and I didn't win every fight, but every one of those people has taken those scars to their graves. And I don't mean emotional scars either. So I was not the type of person getting invited to youth conferences at your age. I mean, you guys are 10 steps ahead of me, let me tell you. I was in juvenile hall, I was smoking pot behind the school, I was probably beating up people like you, to be truthful. And I was a very angry person. So maybe have a little sympathy and compassion. It's probably hard at your age for those kids because there's probably a reason that they're the way they are. And yes, it's my lovely daughter, Jennifer. I don't know if any of you went to John Lathy Middle School, but she's 6th in Union. She taught there for the last 7 years, and she says, Mama, a lot of kids in my class, they have a story like yours that starts out, my grandma came here from Venezuela. English is her second language. So I don't know if you all have this experience that the more madder they get at you, the more English they forget, right? And then you come home and it's like, and where were you? ¿En dónde está tu tarea? ¿Y por qué tú nunca puedes llamarme cuando tú vas a... Yeah, so that was my grandma. And those stories don't usually end up. Like I tell people all the time, I know I look more like Mark Zuckerberg's maid than Mark Zuckerberg, but I really do own a technology company. It's the 3rd one I founded. And I think part of, when I look back, sometimes I think, I cannot give you the answers I have not got. Why did I turn right and my friends turned left and I ended up with a PhD and a gold medal and they ended up in prison? But I think there are a few things that I can tell you. And I figured them out young. One is I was very, very fortunate to have a few people around that thought I wasn't totally worthless. Now, I'm not gonna lie, they weren't all in. I mean, I think my judo coach was a little, maybe not, maybe she'll end up in jail, but I'll give her a shot anyway. My grandma thought I was amazing, but she wasn't always there. So one thing is, if you do have people, you are really, really lucky, and there probably are people like that, and you wanna look for them. And when they are there in your life, don't be as stupid as I was and not appreciate them much of the time. But the other thing I did, and I realized by the time I was about 14 or 15, Daddy Warbucks is not coming in to save me. I was an obnoxious kid, and nobody is looking to adopt a 14-year-old kid with a record out of juvenile justice system. They're just not. And you know, if it was a good story, there would be like the minister who got through to be, no, the minister was an asshole. He was a self-righteous jerk who told us every second that he was only here because of our, you know, because it was his Christian duty to put up with us, and we were gonna go from kid prison to adult prison and burn in hell. So no, I realized pretty young that I need to figure this shit out, because ain't nobody gonna rescue me but me. And that's the other lesson I have for you, and I tell my girls that all the time. Don't be waiting for Prince Charming, rescue yourself, baby. And to figure that out, I think one thing I learned early on, I have a friend who was a tribal, well, he's tribal college president, and he used to be an alcoholic, like homeless out on the street before I met him. And he said, you live a life the truth, or you live a life the lie. And he said, when I was an alcoholic, I was living a life of a lie. You lie about, oh, I don't have a drinking problem, oh, I could quit anytime I want, oh, it's not hurting my relationships. Well, I've never been an alcoholic, but I really do think there's a lot of truth to that. You live a life of a lie, or you live a life of truth. You can't be an honest person part of the time. If you're lying to people about where you've been, what you're doing, who you're with, then that should be a lesson to you. And I might have been a bad kid, but at least when I fucked up, I knew I was fucking up, okay? And I didn't lie about it. I didn't blame it on somebody else. You know, if I hauled off and punched that police officer in the face, I knew this was not gonna end well. So, I mean, that lady, you know, talked about, you know, going to Standing Rock. My daughter went to Standing Rock, too. But no, it wasn't that. It was, a lot of it was totally my fault, but at least I knew it. And that's the first thing I figured. If you can't fix a problem unless you admit it. We do a podcast, and we had a guy who was an ex-heroin addict on the podcast the other day, and he's doing super now, Jonathan Shaw. You should get his books. And he said, the central factor in all these problems was me. So even if I was screwing up, I knew it, and I was willing to face up to it. And I've seen so many people, whether they were Olympic athletes or whether they were software developers, whether they were kids in high school, be so much less than they could be because they wouldn't admit. They didn't have the courage and honesty to admit they made a mistake, and so they kept doing it. Yeah, I got married young. The first priest wouldn't marry us because he said, you're too young to get married and you shouldn't get married, and I should have listened to him. And I stayed married for years because I did not want to admit that it was a mistake. Jane Mercer, who's one of my professors in graduate school, said, no matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, turn back. So I think one thing I did is I had the courage and honesty to at least face up to the things I was doing that were wrong and stupid. Now, I didn't get up one day and then all of a sudden put on, like, you know, Dockers and become, you know, strawberry shortcake, but that was the first thing. The other thing that I want to tell you guys, because you guys are smart, you are way ahead of where I was at your age. When I got into college, I got a scholarship, and all these kids had money. All these kids, one of the professors said in a marketing class, you know, name a designer. They're like, Ann Taylor, Calvin Klein. I was like, what? When you get in that situation, you can be different or you can be better. And sometimes you feel like you can't be better. You know, my little daughter took the SATs 14 times before she took them for real, because she went to a really yuppie prep school. And then you have to go and compete against those kids. You have to go and compete against those kids who had every advantage. They don't have to work like you do. They went to better schools than you do. If they had problems in school, they had tutors for them. And now, as smart as you are, you're in classes with those kids and they're way ahead of you. You know, for the first time when I got into college, I got a C in something. For the first time, I wasn't always at the top of the class. And you have the choice of saying, you know what, I need help. I need a tutor. Now, for me, I was used to being the smartest person in the room, and that was a hard thing to swallow. it was hard to look. I was pepper in the salt shaker, baby. It was hard to look and see all these kids who didn't look like me, and they're all doing well. And my doctorate's in applied statistics and psychometrics, and I write software. And you guys can say, oh, you're digital natives. Let me tell you, there's a hell of a lot of difference between posting on Facebook how wasted you got last night and making Facebook. And that's what we do. And everywhere around, you're told that that's not you. You know, I had a student ask me, isn't it true that all Asian kids are scary smart at math? I'm like, 1 billion people in a country? Yeah, right. But if you've been told that every day, and then you get in that situation, and you're not doing that well. And somebody asked me, well, I got asked to come speak at MIT at the graduate school, and they said, well, how did you decide that you could succeed anyway? I said, because I'm fucking amazing. And maybe it was that attitude that I got that I managed to fight my way out of juvenile hall into college, but I wasn't going to stop there. And I think it's important to know you are going to get in those situations. You are going to be where you're not the smartest one in the room. You are going to be where you're at the bottom half of the class, and you've never been there before. And just because you don't know it now doesn't mean you can't learn it, no matter what it is. You know, I had a bunch of people when we started our company say, well, you know, you don't look like a software developer and you're an old lady. What do you know about games? And I said, you know what, screw all you people. We do it anyway. And we raised $1.7 million, and 4 years later, we're still here when a lot of those other companies are gone. So it's a matter of just deciding you're going to do it. Never, 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 never give up. And that's a lot easier said than done. You know, there's a lot more people who have the courage to stand and be punched in the face or jump on a grenade in a foxhole that have the courage to stand up in a boardroom or stand up in front of a class when everybody might think they're dumb or stupid. And I just want to leave you because I make games that teach math. I love math. There's this idea. Yeah, I was very disappointed when you said, like, stand up, who's in sports and who's, and I waited for you to say math and you didn't do it. I was very disappointed. There's this myth that you do what you love, right? Well, I went into math. This is part of being honest. I knew myself. I knew that no one was hiring me for my personality. No one was hiring me because of my family connections. And math and programming were something that there was a real shortage of then, and there is now. Basically, if you showed up in an interview in clothes, they hired you. So I got good at it. And I didn't like it at first, but sometimes you don't like stuff because you're not good at it. And the better you get, the more you like it, the more you understand it. You know, people say stupid stuff like, well, I've never used algebra in my life. Yeah, well, I've never used Chinese either. And you know why? Because I don't speak it. But if you knew it and you were good at it, you would use it. I knew a basketball coach that said, you know, people say follow your dreams, and I say forget your dreams, kid, follow math. Because you know what? Math will get you really far. And if you're good at math, you know your probability of making the NBA is like 1 in a million. And your probability of getting a good job as a software developer, if you actually get that degree, is about 100%. So that's why, once I got a PhD, and I tell my kids all the time, I have a PhD and a gold medal, and one of them lets us live by the beach in Santa Monica, and it's not the gold medal. So I decided, I am not, you know, this lady over here has asked me if I go to protests. No, I don't. I mean, I run a company. This is the 4th company I founded. I give money to stuff. I give people jobs. And that's my way. And if that's your way, it's okay. And that was really good. Somebody told me that in school. Because I feel like I'm not going back in the community and do this. No, I go and I build a company and I make money. And when my kid went to Standing Rock, I wrote her a check. It said, buy some stuff for me. That's okay. But learn math. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Math's a pyramid, right? People say, oh, I don't have that math brain. No. If you didn't understand fractions, then you're not going to get ratio, you're not going to get proportion, you're not going to get decimals. It doesn't mean you don't have the math brain. It's like if I was building a house and nobody, you know, I didn't have the door for it. And then I said, oh, well, I'm just not a builder. No, you just need the door. So those are the things that I know. You know, don't let nobody has the right to beat you, whether it's beating you physically or beating you out. Nobody. No one's going to come in and rescue you. Do it yourself. And never, 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 never give up, no matter how many people tell you that you should, or you can't do it, or it's not like people like you. Because you know what, when people say, You don't look like a software developer. You don't look like a tech entrepreneur. You don't look like the person that has the best educational game in the country. Tell them, well, look again. That's all I know. Should I armbar him? Should I throw him? All right, I'll be in chair.
I want some judo lessons and math.